Mr. Don Gray, the floor is yours.
Okay, service guide dog accreditation. This is something that has been more and more often. I'm running into this in my business. People are trying to have their pet as a service animal, pygmy goats and all kinds of things. That in Alberta and BC, it's just dogs that are accredited, and they need to be certified. Here's an example of a company that you can buy a registration and identification and all that kind of stuff. You can buy a package, and it was like $60 or something. You can get one.
Yeah, there was a plethora. Hey, when we were doing our research, Don, there was just a ton of different examples, and
Oh, yeah.
we included 2 or 3, but there's literally dozens. I mean, for example, here this one says, this is kind of interesting. They have operating hours from 2 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time. Well, that's kind of odd. If you go and click on their contact, they happen to be in a lovely state of Hawaii. So, but they're providing Canadian cross Canada certification. So then
They should put a
couple,
hula on that dog.
yeah, a couple others. So here's Amazon right now.
Mhm.
You can get a card. Click on customize now. Dog's name, handler. Another one here too. Again, it's showing Canadian service dog. And really, Don will get into this. Like what's really the thing here is really knowledge. And then again, another one. There's tons and tons and tons.
Yep. Yeah, it's it was fun going through that. Some examples there. Yeah, we got this Canadian one. If you get down further, they got packages you can buy. You can, if you just want to fly, or if you want to be able to get into some kind of accommodation. Maybe the next slide.
Yeah, the big key here. Oh, sorry, I should have clicked on that. Don is worth saying is there is no Canadian federal legislation, right? So if someone's offering
no federal, no.
Yeah, anything related to federal, that's your first red flag that it's fraudulent. There's just that legislation doesn't exist in Canada. The federal government tried to push through a change in 2018, and the Canadian General Standards Board ended up choosing not to do it. So your defense is knowing your provincial legislation. This is where this is governed at. So
if you look in that, if you look in the red box there in the middle there, it says fact. Each province has its own policies. So they got some truth in there. What they're going under here is Canada Health Act to have a dog for your PSD or whatever. But it does mention there that Alberta has a Service Animals Act, and British Columbia the Guide Animal Act. So the rest of the world or rest of Canada is different. So yeah, under the Service Dog Act, if you have a certified guide dog, and that's usually that's to do with the Blind Persons Act as well, and they go and coincide. So if you actually have a certified service dog, you can't deny, nobody can deny you that occupancy of a self-contained dwelling unit or discriminate against any term and condition of the self. So you can't say you can't have the dog is basically it. So, for the reason a person is a blind person keeping or customary accompanied by a guide dog.
Yeah. It basically kind of add to what you're saying there, Don, right? So you have to rent them. You can't deny them. You can't use the no pet policy. And at the same thing, Section 3 here is basically saying they're not entitled to any additional rights. They're entitled to basically the same rights as someone who doesn't have a service dog would have. Nothing more, nothing less. What's interesting here on the Alberta one at the bottom is this legislation does not apply if the dog is not under control or the behavior of the dog is not appropriate. So that's really interesting, and that's unique to Alberta.
Yeah, well, they have to pass the test. They have to come from an accredited, listed, and then they have to pass a test before they can be certified. And part of that test is that the dog has the right temperament. It's not going to have an anger problem. Uh, so we got here BC legislation is very close to the same.
Basically the same in the first two sections. I
Yeah.
think the last one is they have an interesting section that no one else has. Section 3 there, Don, where if there's shared accommodations or facilities.
Yeah, and so then they this doesn't apply if they live in a shared unit where you're sharing a bathroom, kitchen, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that was interesting. And so if you're renting out a room in your house and you are sharing the bathroom, kitchen, your living room, then you actually have a right to deny a service animal, which I found interesting, surprising when we were doing our research.
Yeah.
Yeah, and BC or Alberta, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, first came out the legislation that the specific Guide Dog Act. BC shortly followed after, and then actually they've standardized across Nova Scotia as well. So if you have IDs from 3 of those provinces, and we'll show you what those samples look like as well, then they're actually legitimate.
No legislation in Ontario. They have a mention in one of their acts, but nothing that Alberta or BC has.
Yeah, I'll share a screen here. So this is if you guys want to use the QR code just to kind of follow along for you if this applies to you in Ontario. Accessibility in Ontario, what you need to know, and then you can click down to guide and service dogs. Basically, obviously the same access or accommodations do apply, but they do not have to wear a vest or a harness. There's no governing legislation specific to the guide dogs and what is required. Unfortunately, if you're in Ontario, you have a bit of an uphill battle. You could receive letters from doctors, nurses, psychologists, whatever, stating that this individual needs it, and then they don't. Yeah, they're using this definition for the service dog. And then there's something else here. Oh yeah, here's the last part that's kind of important is which makes it challenging again if you're in Ontario, is there is no certification and they don't need to have certification cards. Now saying that, and here's what kind of Don was alluding to, Don, is there is something called a Blind Persons Act here in Ontario. Actually, there's a similar act in most provinces that kind of defines those similar rights. But where you guys are kind of left stranded is there's no again, certification standard or accreditation for you guys to look to unfortunately verify the authenticity of a service dog in your province. Yeah,
business owners have a duty to accommodate up to a point of undue hardship. So if an example that I've run across is, if you have somebody coming in your building that's in a wheelchair, for example, and you have some steps, duty to accommodate would include putting a ramp over those steps, but you wouldn't be forced to put in an elevator.
Yeah.
That'd be undue hardship. You can't deny if it's a bona fide service dog or guide dog. That's the same thing in Alberta. You can't deny him the entry into your business, and you can confirm certification. Accreditation. Some of the other provinces say you can't even ask, so you just have to assume that if they got a guide dog, that's certified.
Awesome. Yeah, and just specific to our situation, being landlords and property managers and homeowners, is if someone shows up to your viewing with a service dog and there's an obvious need, you can't deny and you can't even ask for release certification at that point. You need to permit and let them in. However, going back to that point of undue hardship, or if you've got, especially if it's like a suite of property and you've got other renters, and say if there's allergies and other things at play, you do have the right when you're going to go sign a lease then to validate the authenticity or the accreditation of that service dog.